News Channel 5 Investigates has found another disturbing video that raises questions about the treatment of the mentally ill behind bars.
There are fewer places for the mentally ill to get treatment, so they end up in prison. Investigative reporter Ben Hall continues his look at what happens when the mentally ill are locked up. Ben?
Well, that's right. 1 out of every 3 inmates in Tennessee prisons is mentally ill. Jason Toll was one of them. His story highlights how that can lead to a tragic end.
Unblock the door.
This video, shot by prison officers, recorded the final violent minutes of an inmate's life. In August 2010, officers at Riverbend, armed with tasers and shock shields, forced Jason Toll out of his barricaded cell. The extraction team got Toll on his stomach and cuffed his hands and feet.
Take him out right here. Just take him out that way.
They then carried him out of the cell to an unlit prison yard and restrained him with shock shields.
Moving.
Soon you can hear Toll struggling to breathe. Minutes later, the 33-year-old was dead.
Mr. Toll?
The medical examiner said he died from suffocation and ruled his death a homicide.
You could tell that he couldn't breathe, knowing that that's happening, and you can't do anything about it. You can't do a thing.
Jane Luna is haunted by her son's pleas for help. She blames his death on a system that regularly locks the mentally ill behind bars in an unforgiving environment.
What was it? Paranoid schizophrenia?
It was schizoaffective. It's part schizophrenia. Part of it is bipolar. He would hear voices that would tell him to hurt himself.
Was this a borderline case of mental illness based on what you're looking at?
No. When his thought disorder or his mood disorder was acting up, he wasn't capable of day-to-day function.
Dr. David Street reviewed hundreds of pages of Toll's medical records and says this is a tragic example of what happens when people with severe mental illness wind up in prison.
The correctional institutes aren't designed to do mental health delivery. They're for criminals.
Jason Toll didn't seem like a kid headed to prison. At age 12, he was pitching for his Goodlettsville baseball team. He had a sense of humor, friends, and a family that loved him.
I was up there in the stand, rooting him on every practice, every game.
Toll's mom says around age 15, he started acting oddly and getting into trouble.
I didn't really think it was a mental illness at first. I thought he was just doing bad things.
She says she tried to get him help, but says she was turned away from mental institutions.
And they said he wasn't bad enough to keep.
When there is nowhere else for the mentally ill to go, what happens to these folks?
Dr. David Street is concerned by the constantly shrinking number of mental health beds in the state. In 2000, there were 1,000 beds. In 2010, there were 660. And today, it's down to 550.
I think what you're seeing is that they're in the criminal justice system because there is actually nothing else that's catching these folks.
Toll was eventually charged with aggravated burglary for breaking into a neighbor's home. Once in custody, he got a reputation for being difficult.
Get on the floor!
This video shows an earlier cell extraction. His record shows suicide attempts, even an escape attempt.
He's not thinking rationally.
No, no.
He has numerous assaults on staff, throwing fluids.
On the day Toll died, he threw urine on an officer and refused to leave his cell. That's when the extraction team went in.
When he came to the door, I could see the fear in his eyes. He was scared.
She was shocked when the state reviewed the video and called it a by-the-book cell extraction, and when a jury agreed.
To know that that's your child, and to know that he was...
Moving.
Toll is now just another unruly inmate to die in prison. Jane Luna sued the prison officers, but a jury ruled they did nothing wrong. Corrections officers are certainly on the front lines of this mental health issue.
Just last night, you had a story about a woman in the Putnam County Jail who wasn't given her medication.
Well, that's right. The county wound up paying her $20,000 after trying to subdue her. We've had numerous calls since that story. Sheriffs and prison officials say it is now time to talk about reform.